after a child gives his or her life to Christ, it's very important to help them understand the difference between salvation and baptism. And so when a child comes to me and they're wanting to be baptized, the first thing I do is I talk to them about when they gave their life to Jesus, because I want to make sure that they understood what it meant to give their life to Christ, to be saved. I also want to make sure that they understand very clearly the difference between salvation and baptism. And so after I hear their salvation story, and I know for a fact that they truly understood and prayed to receive Christ, then I'm going to have a conversation with them, something like this. Let's say I'm talking to a child named Johnny. And so I'm going to say, Johnny, I'm so glad that you gave your life to Jesus. And baptism is a symbol of what Jesus did for you and what Jesus did the moment you were saved. But first, look at my wedding ring, and I'll show him my wedding ring. Now, what does this wedding ring tell you about me? And most kids are pretty quick to say, well, it tells you that you're married. Then I'll slip my wedding ring off, and I'll say, am I still married? Well, of course I'm still married. This ring doesn't marry me. It just says he's been married. In the same way, baptism doesn't save you. It just says this person has been saved. This person has given his life to Jesus. So in the same way that my ring doesn't marry me, baptism doesn't save you. You were saved the moment you gave your life to Jesus, the moment you prayed and you asked him to come into your life. That's when you were saved. And today, being baptized is a picture of what happened to you when you were saved. And so I'll take my hands and kind of hold them up and down as if a person is standing there. And I'll say something like this. And as I do it, I motion my hands with it. I'll say, let's say this is Jesus, and he died and was buried. And I move my hands sideways. And then he rose from the dead. Well, baptism is a picture of that here's Jesus, he died and was buried, and then God raised him from the dead. And here you are, and you gave your life to Jesus. And when you did that, in a way, you died to self because you surrendered your life to Jesus, and he raised you to a brand new life. And so as I'm talking about this, I'm using my hands to demonstrate the picture of a person going under the water and back up. And then I'll explain that in the same way that this is a picture of how Jesus died and rose again, and a picture of how you gave your life to Jesus and he saved you, it's also a picture of how God washed your sins away. That in the same way that the water, when you're filthy dirty, if you have mud all over you, that water's going to clean you. Well, this water, there's nothing special about it. It's not going to clean you. But when you asked Jesus to come into your life, he cleaned your sins away. He forgave you. Then before a child is baptized, there's a few other things that I say to them. One, I tell them that when they're baptized, it's not about anything that they say. In fact, I don't have children say anything because I don't want them going up to be baptized, and I don't want them worrying or thinking about trying to remember the right thing to say. This is not about what they say. In fact, I tell kids, I said, there's nothing you can do that's wrong. There's nothing you can do to mess this up, because this isn't about anything you say. It's not about remembering anything. This is about your heart, that you've given your life to Jesus, and today you're publicly sharing that you want to follow God with your life. And so there's nothing for you to remember, nothing for you to worry about, nothing for you to be nervous about. And I'll share with them that when I was baptized, after I was saved as a child, that I was nervous about the people out there. And I share with them, it's not about the people out there. That those people out there who are saved, they're cheering you on. They're praying for you. But it's not about them. This is about you and God, and that you're following Jesus with your life today. This is usually a short conversation, and a few of the other things that I do is I walk children through exactly what I'm going to say and what I'm going to do when I baptize them, because I do have them hold their nose, and then I lower them under the water. And I also let them feel the water, touch it, see it, be very visual. I want them to know everything that's going to happen that day. And so when it comes to helping a child follow the Lord in baptism, these are some steps you can take. Now, the last thing I want to address is when a child is ready to be baptized. I believe a child is ready to be baptized the moment that they're saved. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not opposed to waiting. If a child tells me he wants to wait, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to push it. But sometimes parents wait too long. Their child is saved at a young age, and because they have uncertainty about their child's salvation experience or fear that someday they might doubt it, they hold off baptism. And sometimes they'll wait for years, so much so that their child starts to struggle with, I was saved, I never followed God, maybe I didn't mean it. So sometimes by trying to not create those things, they actually create what they're trying to avoid. I believe a child can be a fully, completely, 100% devoted follower of Christ the moment that child is saved, no matter what age they're saved at. Now, that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be follow-up. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't often revisit their salvation experience, talk to them about it to make sure. A lot of students, they hit teenage years and they go back and they doubt their salvation experience as a child. And sometimes it's because they didn't mean it. Maybe they walked down an aisle or prayed a prayer because a friend did or because someone else did. But a lot of that is weeded out in dealing with children one-on-one. But a lot of times, their doubt comes from the fact of they made a decision when they were 7 years old, and they haven't really thought about it or talked about it since then. So it's not a matter of, I didn't mean it. It's a matter of, I really don't remember it. And because they don't remember it, a lot of doubt creeps in. Now, I'm going to talk to you about this in another segment, the segment on what needs to happen with a child after salvation to build assurance inside of them. And so I'm going to stop at this point talking about baptism, except simply to say that a step of following baptism is extremely important, even for a child. There was a student that came to me one day. He was a senior in high school. He had been saved years and years before. And he came to me and he said, for 6 months I've been struggling, feeling like there was something in my life holding me back from going the next step with God. Like in my relationship with God, I've stalled out because there's something that's out of place. And he said, I've struggled for 6 months trying to figure out what it is. And finally, I was praying the other day, and I finally put my finger on it. And he said, I've never been baptized. And his words were this: I don't believe that I can continue to grow in my relationship with God until I follow in this step of obedience. Baptism is a step of obedience. And if a child is saved and they've given their life to Christ, I don't understand why I would look at them and say, you need to stall your obedience in following Christ. Now, it's okay if a parent wants to wait. Give them that grace, but also help them understand that waiting a long period of time can actually create the doubt that they're trying to avoid.